Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Amon Green, Green Bay Packers all-time leading rusher, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packer content. Go Pack, go!
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out at patreon.com/PackerFan Total Access. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Here to talk a little NFL draft. We got some quick riser updates as Daniel Jeremiah released his top 10 rising prospects from the Senior Bowl. It's funny, too, because there's several players that I felt like had a good week that weren't on this list. There was 2 or 3 on this list that I was like, didn't really hear much about, but obviously Daniel Jeremiah, boots on the ground, really exciting. Some of them, too, in the 200s on our draft board. So you love to get that mark next to their name on our draft board just to kind of show, hey, DJ thought they had a great week when the lights were on at Senior Bowl practice, obviously going up against some of the best prospects coming up in the upcoming draft. So we'll dive into that list and we'll talk everything NFL draft. I know the chat's already filling up. Appreciate everybody jumping in there on such short notice. Here it's January 31st. We got the Senior Bowl this afternoon. Excited to sit down, crack open a Daddy Soda and watch that ball game and kind of see if anybody pops. Obviously, there will be extra points, extra bonuses applied to our PTA draft board for players who win the offensive and defensive MVP awards. We're already getting the information trickling in from all of the trusted sources, right? Boots on the ground in Mobile, Alabama, in terms of who had great practice weeks, and we're getting those bonuses applied as well. Let's go to the chat real quick. Blake B. Go Pack Go says, just watched my first highlight reel of draft season. Hey, welcome aboard, sir. Welcome aboard. It's exciting time. Zion Young. He's got good size, strength, and wingspan. Wingspan's insane, man. Maybe looks a little lumbering to me, but tries to be twitchy, can play D-tackle like LVN sometimes. So, Zion Young on our board, if I remember correctly, he is 26th. He's in the 26th spot on our PTA big board. Walter Football had him at 14. Daniel Jeremiah did not have him in the top 50 on his initial 50, which is really interesting. So the grade we've got on him is a 30.2, and that's mainly because the consensus big board had him at 50, right? The PFF big board had him at 47. And, of course, his PFF 25 grade was a 42. Walter Football, very high on him at a 14. We'll see if Walter Football sticks. We're giving it a test run. We may move that to a more reputable source. Walter Football is one of those sites, one of those, forms of information when it comes to draft prospects and other information across the league, free agency, things like that. I've been following them guys since I don't want to misquote here or misrepresent, but I want to say it was early 2000s, like some of the earliest stages of the internet. Walter Football was around, so I think that does need to be taken into consideration. Their longevity, obviously, and there's a lot of people that do trust them. So we will continue to dive into that as well. Here we go. But Chad Inc. in the chat said, I've enjoyed watching the Senior Bowl stuff. It's been fun, man. Some people don't get into the Senior Bowl, and I get it. We try to give content for everyone. Like me and Jacob are going to do a live stream here around noon, a little later before the Senior Bowl kicks off. It'll probably, I got to talk to him about, but it'll probably be geared around salary cap talk, that type of thing. All right, how much cap space do we actually have? How much can we free up? Where can the numbers free up? Just to kind of give everybody a quick refresher on that. So we're trying to give y'all every angle here at PTA. We're giving you draft talk. We're giving you free agency. We're giving you re-sign/restructure talk. Obviously, the coaching hires has been going crazy. I've gotten really good feedback of the coaching profiles, so you can kind of get to know, all right, what value did the Packers see in these particular coaches, right? So that's the goal moving forward, is just to kind of give you guys a little bit of everything. Blake B in the chat says Walter Football is an OG, but not the best about updating their board late in the game. LOL. It's crazy. PFF. There's players missing off PFF's big board too, Blake, and I'm like, why do they not? Like Bo Stevens wasn't even on there the other day. I'm going, what are we doing? So again, man, everybody approaches it a different way, I guess. I know for me, it's about getting the information in as quick as possible before all the buzz, all the hype train takes off, because you're going to see some of these guys, you're going to notice they're lower on our consensus big board. Now all of a sudden they're in the top 100, right? And it's because all the buzz coming out of the Senior Bowl. I want to know what people thought about these prospects coming right out of the college football season, if that makes sense. So, yeah. All right. Now, see everybody following in. Really, really appreciate everybody jumping in. Let's waste no time, man. Let's get into it. The quick risers according to Daniel Jeremiah. I put the list that he gave, and just kind of added some little scouting blurbs to it, if you will. But you guys make sure you go check out his article. It's way more valuable than anything I write, obviously. But again, want to give credit to Daniel Jeremiah. This is his list. This isn't Clayton's top 10 riser list. This is Daniel Jeremiah, former NFL scout. All right, so here we go. Based on Daniel Jeremiah's standout list from the 2026 Senior Bowl, here are the scouting reports and injury histories for each prospect. You're going, okay, so you're including injuries too. Why, Clayton? It's important, man. It's important to understand that, hey, these guys flashed and they flashed recently, but what's the injury history been like, right? Just to give you a little blurb, a little snapshot of where their injury history is. And I see everybody filing in. If you would, smash that like button for me. We greatly appreciate it. Every time you do that, it lets other people know that we're live. And yeah, thank y'all so much for doing that. Number one on his list, and again, he didn't specify whether it's in this particular order of value or not. He just had them listed off. Maybe these are the guys that flashed the most to him, but we're starting with the running back out of Indiana, and that's Kaelon Black. All right, running back, Indiana, your national champion, Indiana Hoosiers. I know there's a lot of Wisconsin fans that watch this show just threw up on their keyboard. I get it. I understand, man. So scouting report, Black is a runway back who excels with high-end acceleration and vision. He consistently plays at full speed, showing a competitive edge that allowed him to transition seamlessly from a 16-game national championship season to the Senior Bowl practices. While not a, quote, bruiser who will move piles, his ability to hit the hole and reach top speed quickly makes him a dangerous change of pace weapon. All right, so again, you got a guy that's maybe not a bruiser, but got that quick burst, that acceleration, right? His 10-yard split, probably going to be through the roof. So we'll keep an eye on that as we get into combine season. Injury history, dealt with the knee injury in 2021 and a broken finger in 2022. Earlier in his career, he managed minor lingering issues in 2024, but remained healthy throughout Indiana's 2025 title run. So most recently, guys, no injury concerns here whatsoever when it comes to Kaelon Black. Everything pretty minor, and here recently, looking pretty good. Now, when you dive into our PTA big board, we've got him lower on the list here. We got him, I think that's at 283 is where we've got him out again. Okay, so how do we get to that? His 2023 grade, he was 305th at his position. No 24 grade, 2025, 63rd graded running back. Not bad, right? A lot of running backs in college football, that's for sure. PFF Big Board, however, had him at 207. The consensus Big Board had him at 425. He gets the 5-point bonus from Daniel Jeremiah for the Senior Bowl. That lands him at a final grade of 226.7. So even though he's in the 283 spot, that 226 kind of justifies, hey, somewhere around the 220 range wouldn't be a bad pick for Kaelon Black. Again, that's Kaelon Black out of Indiana. Moving along now, Bud Clark, safety out of TCU. He was one that really flashed to me. I definitely agree with DJ on this one. It just seemed like every time you turn on the Senior Bowl, if he was on the field, he was flashing. He was looking good. So scouting report on Bud Clark, safety out of TCU. A true ball magnet. Clark is a rangy free safety with elite production. He had 15 interceptions over his final 4 seasons. He possesses excellent man coverage, recovery, and natural ball skills, often finishing reps with one-handed interceptions or opportunistic pass breakups. His versatility allows him to play in the box, the slot, or as a deep half safety. So you're going to get some extra added value there with Bud Clark, safety out of TCU, being able to play the slot. Injury history, no major significant injuries reported. Has been one of the most durable starters in the Big 12 over his 6-year college career. Bud Clark lands in the 119 spot on our PTA big board. Had a great PFF grade there in 2024, where he was the 5th highest graded safety. Took a drop back to 91st. PFF big board had him at 184. Consensus big board 159. He gets a 5-point bonus, and it lands him with a 104.8 score. He's in the 119 spot on our big board, but worthy of about the 104th pick. So keep Bud Clark in mind. Again, this isn't necessarily about the Packers. We got a lot of other fans that are watching these breakdowns. So if your team is looking for a safety out of TCU, Bud Clark is one that's kind of on the rise. We'll see how he does at the Combine, Pro Days, et cetera, et cetera. Moving on, we got a Notre Dame guy. People are going to say, Clayton, did you change this list because you're a Notre Dame fan? No, I didn't. Malachi Fields, wide receiver out of Notre Dame. Just let me give you kind of my background in terms of watching Malachi Fields play. He was a guy that was a transfer portal cat. The Fighting Irish went and got him out of Virginia big body receivers before I read the scouting report that it put together for me when I asked it to. Okay. This big body receiver. He's a guy that makes contested catches. If Notre Dame had gone to him more often, I think his production would have been through the roof. Like he pretty much maximized all his opportunities at Notre Dame. However, with their system, it's not just a, hey, throw up a jump ball, throw up a jump ball, throw up a jump ball, right? So it's more of a more balanced approach, I guess you could say. A lot of RPO action, a lot of run game, obviously with Jeremiah Love and Jadarion Price, who are both in the draft this year, which is pretty wild. Both will be – Jeremiah Love will be a slam dunk first round, or probably top 10 pick, maybe even top 5 pick. Price will probably fall to the second round, but some people were saying don't be surprised if he goes in the first, which is wild to think about. I personally don't think Price is first round talent, but you never know, man. It just takes one team to fall in love with him. So here's a scouting report on Malachi Fields. Scouting report: Fields is a physical, big-bodied ex-receiver who thrives in contested catch situations. At 6'4", he uses his frame to shield defenders and boasts a massive catch radius. While he lacks elite burn speed, his route running is refined for his size, and he is a devastating perimeter blocker. He can block, as Emilio would say. Injury history: suffered a broken metatarsal foot fracture, obviously, in 2022. That required surgery. He has played the last 2 seasons, both 24 at Virginia, 25 at Notre Dame, without any recurring foot issues. So he seems to be healthy. The foot fracture is a non-factor now moving forward. We should be good to go with Malachi Fields. Now, if you're a Packer fan, let me talk to my Packer fans real quick. You're probably going, Clayton, we are not drafting a receiver. I completely agree. There's no need to go draft a receiver. But you guys know, if the board falls just right, it's the best player available, hands down. There's no trade back partners. I'm not opposed to taking a big body receiver. You know, you never know when you take a guy like this in the 3rd or 4th round and boom, he pops, and you look back 5 years from now and go, thank God we took him. That's our number 1 receiver. That could happen, right? I'm not saying you should go after Malachi Fields. I'm saying if he were to fall to the 3rd or 4th round, doubt it'll happen. Swoop, I'm on board with scooping him up, and any other receiver for that matter that has a great grade. So he's 70th on our PTA big board. All right. Here are his positional rankings in terms of his PFF grades, starting in 23: 208, 156, 131. So you've seen him get progressively better the last 3 years in college football. The PFF big board had him at 100. The consensus big board had him at 89. All right. So that obviously puts him in the 106.7 range. For us, he gets the 5-point bonus. Daniel Jeremiah had him in the 45 spot. So again, we've got him at 70. DJ has him all the way up at 45. Walter Football has him all the way up at 34. So that puts his grade at a 60.2. So even though he's in the 70 spot, he's worthy of roughly the 60th pick in the draft. So again, we pick at 52. Am I saying you should go get Malachi Fields at 52? Absolutely not. There's so many other needs. I'm not even saying you should go get him in the 70s. I'm simply saying if for some reason this dude drops, I wouldn't be opposed to it once you get into the 3rd and 4th round. You know, it's kind of when the conversation needs to be had. Well, do I think he'll make it that far? No. I think he'll be an early 2nd round pick, most likely. Now, let's get into some positions of need here. Really, excited to talk about Lee Hunter. Lee Hunter is one of those dudes that if you've seen the screen grab here, if you've seen the thumbnail on YouTube, he's one of the players that we have there. He's really wild. It's been interesting watching him. He is a massive, massive human being. Lee Hunter, defensive tackle out of Texas Tech. Scouting report: Hunter is a powerful interior force with a quick first step for his 330-pound frame. He utilizes a dominant, quote, long arm move and heavy hands to displace blockers. While primarily a high-end run defender, he showed flashes in Mobile of being a chaos agent, pass rusher who can collapse the pocket from the inside. Injury history: no major injury history reported during his time at UCF or when he transferred to Texas Tech this year. Has maintained high availability despite his physical playing style, which is a good sign. I'm gonna make a player comp here, and some of you guys may be too young to remember him. It's just the first person that comes to mind when I seen him at the Senior Bowl is Richard Seymour. Richard Seymour back in the day, and I know that's a high comparison. I'm not saying that he's going to be as good as Richard Seymour. I'm saying when I seen him on the field, the first thing that popped is like, that's a huge human being who plays with violence, and he's a lot twitchier than you would expect a big guy like that to be. So, again, Lee Hunter, he comes in at the 52 spot on our big board, 155, 218, and then this year he jumped to the 38th graded highest graded according to PFF defensive tackles, okay, or interior defender as they call it on there. He was 53rd on the PFF big board. He's 48th on the consensus big board, gets the 5-point Daniel Jeremiah bonus. DJ has him at 26 currently on his big board, his top 50. Walter Football a little bit lower on him. They had him around 80. So again, he lands in the 52 spot for us, worthy of the 49th pick with a 49.1 score. So again, that's Lee Hunter. Keep an eye on him. We're going to do a full breakdown on him, his scouting report a little bit later, because I do think that's one that, guys, that's right in our range. When we pick at 52, if Lee Hunter's there, I'd be okay with them running the card. I know we need offensive line help. I get it. And I know some are going to say Lee Hunter's more of a nose tackle. These nose tackles that are dominant, if you could find a dominant nose tackle, you could kick them to 3-tech. Just because we say we need a 3-tech doesn't mean, they got to play the large majority of their snaps in the B gap. It means, do they have the tools? Do they have the physical ability to play 3-tech at the next level? That's the big question. I'm not saying Lee Hunter's got it. I'm simply saying the board suggests that's right around the range where the Packers are picking in the second round. I wouldn't be opposed to it. All right. So again, that is Lee Hunter, defensive tackle out of Texas Tech. The time has come for Max, offensive tackle out of Arizona State. Now I'm going to try to pronounce his name. You guys ready for this? I've seen it pronounced two different ways. I'm going to say it how I think it's supposed to be pronounced. You guys correct me if I'm wrong. This is offensive tackle out of Arizona State, Max Iheanachor. I've heard people say Ihanachor. I've heard people say Ihanachor. I'm going to go with Ihanachor. All right. Max Iheanachor. I'm going to keep that wrote down on my note table so we can refer back to it over and over and over again. All right. Scouting report on Max. A developmental accent prospect. Ihanachor has elite movement skills in elasticity stemming from his background in soccer and basketball. When you watch this guy play tackle, to think that he played soccer and basketball is wild. Absolutely wild. He is still learning the technical nuances of the position, having only started football in 2021, but his rapid improvement during Senior Bowl week suggests a very high NFL ceiling as a starting tackle. Injury history. No significant injuries noted. He is considered a fresh prospect with relatively low football mileage. I'm telling you, man, the videos that we've seen of Max at the Senior Bowl, he looked dominant. And here's what's beautiful about this. When you look at where he falls on our PTA big board, now, keep in mind, he's going to skyrocket up other people's boards. So when we get to the draft, we may see him as the 69th best prospect. Somebody may take him in the first round, right? We know how these things work. Our board, if you want the most recent information of how people feel after all the buzz, the hype, and all that, you can just go to their boards. Our board is an early step process of, all right, here's how we felt after the college football season, and then we add in the hype as needed. But Max, his positional ranking, check this out, starting in 2023, 586th. Ugh. Then he jumps all the way to 177th. Then he jumps all the way to 63rd. So you got an ascending player. We always talk about that. The PFF big board had him at 118. Keep in mind, we have him 69th. The consensus big board has him at 71. That's right in the ballpark where we've got him. Okay. And then, of course, he gets the 5-point bonus for Senior Bowl activities. Daniel Jeremiah has him at 41. That's probably where he'll go. I'm not high enough on him to take him at 52, but him sitting at the 69 spot, if he somehow falls into the 70s and you can nab him in the third round, my goodness, what a pick that would be. So again, his overall grade for us is a 60.0, low number wins. So that suggests he's worthy of the 60th pick. However, he's sitting in the 69 spot on our PTA big board. I see the super chat there, R.R. Smith. Thank you so much. I'm going to hit, y'all get your super chats in. I'll hit them at the end of this segment. Greatly appreciate you guys and the support there. So again, Max Iheanachor is rising up boards. We've got him in the 69 spot. We'll see where he ends up. But as it sits right now, because one thing that will cause him to jump is when we get the Dane Brugler information in our draft board, that's going to cause him to skyrocket as well. Also, if Greg Cosell likes him a lot, he'll get anywhere from a 5 to an 8-point bonus as well. So keep your eyes on Max. All right, moving along here. Number 6 on the list, Kyle Louis. I think that's how you say it. I don't think it's Louis, but we'll call him Louis, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong. Linebacker out of Pittsburgh. All right. This is a guy that flashed all week long. You've seen the him batting balls down. You've seen him punching the ball out. I think he caused a fumble as well. There's a couple of different linebackers. I think the other linebacker made the list as well. That's really popped this week. And listen, I think we're in the market for a linebacker, guys. If Quay Walker hits the market and he's getting 12 to 15 million per, I think you move on from him. You've got Isaiah McDuffie and Edgerrin Cooper. You've got Tyron Hopper, who you're looking to work into the lineup. This is from a Packer fan's perspective. If you guys are watching for another team, just mute me out for a minute, all right? You're going to need another linebacker. You're going to need to fill that void if Quay does walk in free agency. What if somebody falls to you in the third or fourth round and you nab a stud and all of a sudden he becomes a starter alongside Edgerrin Cooper? Now you got him on a $1 million contract for the next 4 years. You're crapping in high cotton, right? That would be a heck of a pickup. So he sits in the 127 spot. 2024 grade is what's really helping him here. He was the 41st highest graded linebacker in all of college football out of 400 teams. Okay. He fell to 241st last year. So that's kind of the Jaden Reed mode. Remember, we talked about Jaden Reed wasn't on our radar because at the time I did not include into the deciding factor previous year PFF grades. I just did the recent PFF grade. Well, now we've got it to where it takes the best of the last two. So if you had a strong performance in 24, but not so in 25, it's going to acknowledge the 24 performance. That's called what we call the Jaden Reed effect. And shout out to Emilio for helping me work in the formula there to get that applied to the board. So again, 41st and 241st, 181st on the PFF big board, 159th on the consensus big board. And then he gets the 5-point bonus. Daniel Jeremiah did not have him in his top 50, although this is Daniel Jeremiah's list. So he's saying, hey, this guy's a riser at the Senior Bowl. Walter Football had him in the 69 spot. So we have him at 127, but his grade, 109.8, worthy of roughly the 110th pick is essentially what that grade is saying. So again, look out for Kyle Louis or Luis, however you say it, linebacker out of Pittsburgh. Again, another player that, if you're wondering why on our board he's lit up in the blue, I see stack backer as a tier 2 position of importance. You see the greens, that's tier 1, tier 2. The whites are just, hey, they're below tier 1 and tier 2 in my opinion. I want stack backers, I want post safeties, and then at the front, I want edge and 3 tech opposite of each other, right? So that's kind of on defense, the level of importance there. And I see we got a bunch of people climbing in here. If y'all would do me a big favor as you step in, hit the like button. We greatly appreciate that. And welcome into PTA, man. Hopefully your coffee is warm this morning. We got about 7 inches of snow fresh falling outside. It's absolutely awesome. Fire burning, coffee going, talking draft, getting ready for the Senior Bowl. It doesn't get any better than this. All right, number 7, Derrick Moore. I know a lot of people just sat up in their seat. Derrick Moore is an interesting one, man. He's had a great week at the Senior Bowl. I'm excited to watch him play. Hopefully all of these players will play. Sometimes you see come game time, they might not play in the game, but you got to see them all practice all week long. We'll see if he actually plays. But Derrick Moore out of Michigan, he's currently in the 54 spot on our PTA big board. Solid prospect. I know some people are going, Clayton, our edge room is crowded. I know it is. It's very crowded. But, man, you can't have enough pass rushers. You cannot have too many pass rushers. You just can't. So Derrick Moore is one to keep your eye on. Scouting report, Moore is a heavy-handed edge setter who excels at speed to power conversion. He plays with a high IQ using a variety of counters and a refined long arm move to compress the pocket. He is a winning starter caliber player who can be left on an island against a run or used as a relentless interior/exterior rusher. That sounds a lot like a young Rashawn Gary to me. You know, Gary would use that straight arm, just lock that thing out and drive him right back into the pocket. Also setting the edge. When Gary has played fundamentally sound, he's as good as anybody against the run, in my opinion. Obviously, he's been toward the top of the league, and he's led the Packers defensive line in run stops for the last however many years. So this is a guy that kind of reminds me of that. Maybe a little more twitchy than Rashawn Gary, although Rashawn Gary, had great combine numbers coming out, right? Injury history, maintained a clean bill of health throughout his career in Michigan's rotation. No major surgeries or missed time, so that's a positive as well. Again, Derrick Moore out of Michigan. 54th on our board. Here are the PFF grades: 118, 104, 19. An ascending player coming into the league. 77th on the PFF big board. 95th on the consensus big board. 5-point bonus for the Senior Bowl. outside of DJ's top 50, so he may be there when we pick, right? And then he's 42nd, according to Walter Football. His grade, a 50.3. I would have no problem with drafting Derrick Moore out of Michigan with the 52nd pick, especially if there's no offensive lineman sitting there screaming they're as good or better, right? So Moore is definitely a very, very interesting prospect there. Again, Derrick Moore, edge defender out of Michigan. That seemed to be one of the fan favorites this year. Up next, TJ Parker, edge out of Clemson. Is he actually an edge? I thought TJ Parker was actually a defensive tackle. I got to check this real quick. I hate to do this stuff live, but yeah, he is an edge. For some reason, I get a couple of those guys. I think I'm getting him and Peter Woods mixed up over and over and over. That's what it is. TJ Parker's an edge out of Clemson. Peter Woods is the defensive tackle out of Clemson. Okay, so TJ Parker, scouting report. Parker possesses a prototypical NFL frame with a powerful lower half and explosive get-off. After a dip in production in 2025, he dominated the Senior Bowl practices with a long arm move and was virtually unblockable. He is a high-motor defender who can manipulate blockers and create attack angles with technical polish. Injury history, he dealt with minor bang-ups during a high-snap 2025 season, but no major no major ligament or structural injuries have been reported. All right. So TJ Parker lands in the 58 spot on our PTA big board. So you can see Derrick Moore is slightly higher than him. And if we were to break it down into tiers, they would actually be in the same tier. So that's what we would call, you would need a cluster buster. You hear us say that a lot, right? Cluster busters are when our horizontal board is created, you'll be able to find that at patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access as we get a little deeper into the draft process. The horizontal board will have the positions listed across the top of the page, right? And then you'll have the prospects in their respective positions by their grade vertically, okay? So vertical board, when you hear us say that, this is a vertical board that we're looking at. The horizontal board kind of meshes everything out into position groupings, and then you get to see these clusters. So, for example, you would have a cluster here with Derrick Moore, edge out of Michigan, and TJ Parker, edge out of Clemson. You'd also have a cluster here of offensive tackle Caleb Tiernan out of Northwestern, and you would have also in that cluster, you would probably have like a Brian Parker. Maybe Brian Parker would be a slight one tier lower. We'll see how the tiers fall. What you'll do now is you'll take those cluster busters and, okay, we've got a position of need. Let's say we consider edge a position of need, whatever team you're rooting for, whether you're a Packer fan like us or not, okay? If you're looking for an edge, then you're going to come down to, all right, in the same tier, we've got TJ Parker and Derrick Moore. What's your cluster buster? What do you put more value on? Because the grade is the same, essentially, being in that same tier. What would you put your cluster buster on? Would it be Senior Bowl performance? If that's the case, both of these guys popped at the Senior Bowl, so now you got to go on to your next level cluster buster. Would it be bench reps? Would it be overall RAS, athletic score? Would it be quick twitch, i.e. your shuttle and your 10-yard split, things like that? Would it be an explosion grade? So you've got your cluster. It may be sacks. You may look at the sack, go, hey, he racked up way more sacks in college. Then you got to peel back a layer and look, okay, what level of competition did he get those sacks against? What's his pass rush win rate? All those things. Those are cluster busters. So again, what you're noticing here from DJ is out of the Senior Bowl, Derrick Moore and TJ Parker are two to watch for. Okay. So again, TJ Parker, 143, 25, 81, 23rd on the PFF big board. So PFF big board saying this is a first round pick. Consensus big board says 26. That's a first round pick, right? Gets the 5-point bonus. Daniel Jeremiah says he's 38th. So he's saying second round pick as it sits right now, is essentially what that 38 is saying. 83 with Walter Football. That's what's dragging him down. 51.6 is where he lands. I'd be okay with taking him with the 52nd pick. But with DJ's information, he's probably not going to last to 52. He might last out of the first round. Of course, if he goes to the combine and torches it and gets a 9.95 RAS, all bets are off. He may be a top 10 pick. You guys know how this works. So, again, that is TJ Parker, edge defender out of Clemson. Up next, Jacob Rodriguez. This is the other linebacker I was talking about. Jacob Rodriguez, linebacker out of Texas Tech. Really like this kid. Another guy I would be okay with the Packers drafting if you decide to move on from Quay Walker. I don't like that you would probably have to take him with the 52nd pick, but if he were to fall to the third round, I would be okay with the pick. Here we go. Jacob Rodriguez, scouting report, a converted quarterback with elite processing speed. And you've seen that at Senior Bowl practice, guys. You've seen him breaking on the ball before it was even thrown. You've seen him read and recognize all throughout the practices. And also punching at the ball, high football IQ guy. He's a former quarterback. All right. Rodriguez is a turnover machine who forced 7 fumbles in 2025. He's a cerebral mock linebacker who diagnoses plays before they happen. While slightly undersized, his violent striking ability and pursuit angles make him a constant factor in the run game. Here's the thing. Quay Walker, I didn't have him on the screen. I apologize, guys. Quay Walker is a physical freak, athletic freak. What's his downside? The processing speed. It's like he doesn't really shoot that shot the way he should, right? Jacob Rodriguez, we'll see how his physicality, his physical traits, if you will, match up to Quay's as we get a little longer or a little deeper in the process here. But he's got that processing speed. What he may lack in speed and agility and acceleration that Quay's got, he makes up for in his ability to read and react. That's the type of prospect he is. I'm not saying he'll be a better pro than Quay Walker. All bets are off with all prospects. These guys may hit the NFL level and they be cheeks, right? But you're looking for those individual traits. What are we always aggravated about? Why is that guy running butt naked through the trailer park across the middle? Because it's a blown coverage. Why are they getting 6-7 yards a clip running the ball in specific sets and formations? Because our linebackers aren't keying fast enough, right? All those things come into play. Jacob Rodriguez, I don't know. He's looking like a very, very appealing prospect. So he is 63rd on our PTA big board, the 51st highest graded linebacker in 24. Okay. In 2025, this football season for Texas Tech, he was the highest graded linebacker in all of college football. So again, PFF grade, he's number 1. Scouting report says, man, this dude can force turnovers and he is cerebral. This is probably my favorite linebacker in the draft. And again, it's early in the process. These numbers are going to shuffle around. But Jacob Rodriguez, wherever he goes to play football, somebody probably going to get a damn good linebacker. Hope he doesn't land in the North if we decide not to go with him. 93rd on the PFF big board, 94th on the consensus big board. Guys, that suggests we may have a shot at him in the 70s with that second round or with that third round pick. Would you be opposed to taking Jacob Rodriguez with your third round pick? It's not offensive line, which we know is a need. It's not cornerback, which I think the majority of the fan base feels like is a need. Would you be okay with that? You know, it's a tough question. It's early. We'll see as we get a little deeper in the process. So again, a 54.8 grade. It's actually, he's in the tier where you can justify taking him at 52. I'm not saying we should, but he's in that range, right? So very, very interesting prospect there in Jacob Rodriguez for sure. All right, moving along to the final one, we got another wide receiver, Reggie Virgil. This one's very, very interesting. All right, so Daniel Jeremiah lists him as one of the top 10 risers in the Senior Bowl. So he went out there, the lights came on, and he played well, right? We've got him, check this out, in the 365 spot. People are going, whoa, Clayton. Is that an undrafted grade? It is as it sits right now, yes. So again, Reggie Virgil, wide receiver out of Texas Tech. Scouting report, Virgil is a vertical threat with track level speed and advanced route running tempo. It's really important to be able to change tempo as you're running routes, right? Create that extra separation. With you being able to control your tempo in and out of breaks with the routes, in the middle of a route, being able to manipulate the defender by slowing down and then picking up the tempo, catching up to the ball, tracking it. Ball tracking's got to be elite to be able to pull that off. That, with a combination of late hands and the fact that this is a natural hands catcher, if he's not already a late hands catcher, him being a natural hands catcher, you should be able to teach him that really, really easy. And I mean that because the reason I mention that's because you change that tempo, you change that pace, and then last second burst, late hands, bang. That's an elite trait for wide receivers. He has excellent ball tracking skills. There you go. And a high football IQ, allowing him to align anywhere on the field. So you're telling me that this guy that's in the 365 spot for us, and I'll explain why he's so far down here in a minute. It ain't just us that feels that way. Reggie Virgil in the 365 spot. You're telling me he's a natural hands catcher. He's got track level speed. He's a vertical threat. He's got advanced route running tempo. He's excellent at tracking the ball and a high football IQ. If I were to remove the ranking, remove the name, and read that off, you'd probably go, damn, that's first round pick, right? Look for his name. Look for him to skyrocket up boards. Reggie Virgil, wide receiver out of Texas Tech. We got him 365. This is why. We didn't have a ranking at his position. We'll try to run that down for 23. In 2024, he was graded out as the 274th best receiver. Okay. PFF did not like him. He dropped in 2025 from 274 to 358. So he had, according to PFF, he had an even worse year at Texas Tech this year. Okay. Now, their big board, however, says he's worthy of the 238th pick. They've got him in the 238 spot. Okay. So that helps him a little bit. So that lands him at 290. You're going, what about consensus big board? The consensus big board don't even have him on the board. That will change. And I don't like this about the draft process. But if we don't have a number for these guys early on, we have to put the number that comes in late. Now, sometimes they'll give you a chart and show exactly how bad they were. With the late rise and all the hype, I'll kind of meet in the middle with that number. And you guys will know that we met in the middle. I'll make sure that you're aware of that. So again, 290 gets a 5-point bonus, ends with a grade of 285 for us. So that suggests he's worthy of somewhere around being the 285th prospect. I think by the time this is all over, Dane Brugler's list, Dane Brugler may have him in the top 100. He may have him at 150. He's going to climb on this board. Greg Cosell may rant and rave over him, right? And that may give him a significant bonus as well. So keep an eye on Reggie Virgil, wide receiver out of Texas Tech. So quick recap, going backwards here. Wide receiver Reggie Virgil out of Texas Tech. You've got linebacker Jacob Rodriguez out of Texas Tech. You've got TJ Parker, edge defender out of Clemson. You've got Derrick Moore, edge defender out of Michigan. Kyle Louis, linebacker out of Pittsburgh. We've got Max Iheanachor, got it, out of offensive tackle out of Arizona State. We've got Lee Hunter, defensive tackle out of Texas Tech. We got Malachi Fields, wide receiver out of Notre Dame. Bud Clark, safety out of TCU. And the number one spot there for Daniel Jeremiah is Kaelon Black, running back out of Indiana. You got some late round prospects. You got some first round prospects. You got some middle of the road prospects. Really, really interesting list there from DJ. I'm curious to know what you guys think. If you're watching this video back later, let me know in the comments, which of these prospects are you most excited about? Maybe you're not excited about either of them. Maybe you're like, they're kind of meh to me. Let us know in the comments what you think. And if you don't think any of these 10 are good prospects, who do you like in the draft? We want to hear from you. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you don't miss out on our future content. We greatly appreciate y'all swinging through. All right, let's get to this super chat. And if you guys got any super chats, fire them now. It's time to do that, all right? RR Smith 30 with the super. Thank you so much for the support. No one gets the scouting reports right all the time. A lot of people got it wrong last year, but I appreciate the work you're doing. Salute. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? And thank you so much for the kind words there. Nobody's going to get it right. Nobody's going to get it 100%. That's why I'm kind of showing you guys how we bake the cake here. Like, we're not taking just this person's word. We're not just taking this person's word. We're not putting a whole bunch of information in, right? We're going, okay, who do we trust the most? The consensus big board gives you a good view, a good guess as to here's how everyone kind of feels, all put in together. Okay, that's a portion of our board. PFF big board's a portion of our board. The PFF grade's a portion of our board, right? Daniel Jeremiah is a good chunk of our board. Walter Football will be a good chunk of our board. These guys kind of act as our head scouts, if you will. Daniel Jeremiah, Walter Football, and now Dane Brugler. Again, Walter Football may get replaced. I'm still doing research. They're the one that's been around the longest that I trust the most. The 33rd team is now kind of a consulting firm, so they don't have their board. You don't have access to it anymore. So we've had to shift from that. But those three have a lot of weight. You're going to have your Senior Bowl, All-Star, Senior Bowl, East-West Shrine Bowl bonuses. Obviously, we've applied those. You're also going to get your RAS bonus from the Combine / Pro Days. And then you're going to get Greg Cosell as kind of our lead scout. Like, okay, if he says, I like this guy, we're going to jump him up 10 points, right? Or 8 points or 5 points, however excited he is on them. And I'm telling you, man, you can go look at our board last year. Let me give you an example of why we love Greg Cosell. And I shouted him out on Twitter. It was cool. He retweeted it. I'd love to get him on the show, but that guy's way too busy doing NFL matchup and all that. But the guy he talked about last year and he got raked over the coals for it was Tyler Shuck. Tyler Shuck was the dude that he was like, man, I'm telling you, you watch the tape. This guy has pro-level traits, elite traits, good size, everything. And people laughed at him. And the backlash he got for that on social media, he said the next show on his next podcast he did with our boy Ross Tucker, he immediately said, yeah, I had several GMs reach out to me and front office executives going, you're on it there, dude. You're not the only one who feels that way. And why am I mentioning that? Because we put the PFF grades in from last year. We actually updated our 25 board. And at the end of the season here, when you sort by PFF grade in the pro, so the rookie year, how did they grade out, right? Let me get it up here for y'all real quick. And that one you got to sort backwards. So when you look at that, Tyler Shuck was the highest graded rookie quarterback of the entire draft last year. Okay. Again, Greg Cosell, we gave a 7-point bonus. We typically do a 5 or a 3. He was over the moon with him. So we gave a 7-point bonus, right? Tyler Shuck ended up finishing with a 74.6 PFF grade. And again, we had him with an 83.1 score. Okay. That would suggest he's worthy of like the 82nd pick, 83rd pick, right? But when you're going through that, one of the cluster busters for me is if I've got a bunch of guys in one range of prospects, I would say Greg Cosell's bonus probably carries more weight than anything else on our board. This dude has forgotten more about football than I'll ever know. So rather than me try to be the smart guy and go, let me tell you who the best prospects are. I've got a system. I watch the tape. I scout it. I grade these players by every snap. I don't do that. I don't. I would rather put my ego to the side and go, Greg Cosell, what do you think about this? Dane Brugler, what do you think about this? Daniel Jeremiah, what do you think about this? Daniel Jeremiah has been a pro scout. Greg Cosell's worked with NFL film since the 70s. So that's how I like to approach it. Now, you're probably going, Clayton, why was your grade so low on him then? Right? He should have been a first-round talent. Agreed. But again, we take everything into consideration. So what brung him down last year? Are you ready for it? The consensus big board had Tyler Shuck at 308 at the end of the college football season. PFF had him at 177. So both of those numbers are nowhere near where he was drafted or where his value should have been. But Senior Bowl, he shined. 5-point bonus at the Senior Bowl. Okay. Daniel Jeremiah had him at 75. The 33rd team had him at 91. Dane Brugler had him at 59. So Dane Brugler and Greg Cosell were higher on Tyler Shuck than anyone. Now, Dane Brugler puts his information out at the last second. So keep in mind the majority of our information is going in early because we want to know how people felt after the college football season, i.e. the tape. But again, that is how that fell into place. So thank you so much, R.R. Smith. It was a little bit long-winded way of telling you that, but I just want everybody to understand how the board works. It's not my opinion of the prospects. It's not Jacob's opinion, Tim's opinion, Emilio's opinion. It's people that we trust within the draft community opinion. And it's not any Tom, Dick, and Harry out there that's, grading the tape and saying that they're a draft expert either, okay? It's guys that have been around for a while. So thank you for the super chat, RR. We got Chester Marco with the super chat. Thank you so much. I love the depressed clown there. Smoking a cigarette, drinking a beer, whatever it is, always cracks me up. As an owner, I'm writing Ed policy and telling him to let Clayton run the draft. LOL. Chester, buddy, you put Clayton in the draft room, and this whole thing's going to burn to the ground. I will say this, though, man. You talk about a fan experience. How awesome would it be if you could just sit in on the draft room, sit in the corner, shut your mouth, not say a word, and just watch those guys work? Oh, I would love to be a fly on the wall in the draft room. But, that's funny. I appreciate the super chat. I know you're joking there. Obviously, don't think I'm taking that seriously, but it's every fan's dream, right? What would it be like to be in that draft room? It would be absolutely awesome. So appreciate you, Chester. And then R.R. Smith with another super chat. Thank you so much. I'm late getting into this, still getting over the playoff loss. Hey, we have a lot of comments that say the same thing there, R.R. There's many fans that are like that. The beautiful thing about this channel, we're going to keep the content going all off season long, every single day for the most part. Sometimes life gets in the way, but I try to do a show at least once every day, multiple times a day if we can. As we get later into the process, what you'll notice is people get over the playoff loss and they get back in quick. You're in quick. There's some that won't come back till training camp. Okay. And that's okay. That doesn't make them bad people. It doesn't make them bad fans. It's just how they fan, right? We're the diehards. The thing I love about this time of year, when everyone else's content slows down and we ramp ours up, we find the diehard fans are looking for content. And that's where we found some of our best listeners, our best viewers, our people that I've become really good friends with throughout this whole podcasting process. So, you may feel like you're a little late, but no, you're on time. Or so, who are the monster defensive tackles, and what's the odds we nab one? That's who I'm looking at. Question mark. Maybe said what am I looking at? I don't know. So he's asking about, or she. I apologize if it's a he or she. Either way, let's look at the defensive tackles. Okay, so let me get my board on the screen here. Let me get last year's off. I'm going to put it on the screen for you guys, and we're going to troubleshoot this together since it's a super chat. And you guys keep the super chats coming, man. We'll go as long as you guys want to sit there and talk ball. I got a little bit of extra time. I'm going to go live with Jacob here around 1 o'clock my time. But let's get the draft board up for you guys and gals, and let's show you how we're going to troubleshoot. This is beautiful. Like if you're in the Patreon group, patreon.com/PackerFan Total Access, you have access to this board. Okay, we make it access to all of our members over there. Trying to get this just right where you guys can see it good. All right. So, we always sort by the grade, low number wins over here to the right. Okay. That's the board, right? However, if you go to position and you sort A to Z here, right? And you go down to defensive line, guess what? Emilio's got the formula to where these prospects are in the order of their grade, even though we sorted by defensive line. So according to our board right now, R.R. Smith, this is where the prospects sit. Okay. And now keep in mind, there's some of these names that I may not have recognized yet that have decided to go back to college. Okay. I think I've got them all off of here, but if you guys notice one, hit me up in the chat. Okay. And we'll make sure that we remove them from the list. But again, we're just it's early in the process. It's January 31st. This board is going to shift and move a lot, but as it sits right now, one day before February, this is how it goes, your top defensive tackles according to our board. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to give you their name and school and their grade. And keep in mind, the grade would say you could justify taking them at that spot. Okay, that's what that means. So Caden McDonald, defensive tackle out of Ohio State, 25.2, so worthy of around the 25th pick. Caleb Banks, defensive tackle out of Florida, 31.2, so he's worthy of about the 31st pick. Kristen Miller, defensive tackle out of Georgia, one of my draft crushes this year, boys. I'm telling you, he's a dog. 32nd on our, not 32nd on our board, but a 32 grade, meaning worthy of the 32nd pick. Peter Woods, defensive tackle out of Clemson, 36.7. Hold up, timeout. Clayton, you're telling me Peter Woods is the 4th best defensive tackle according to your board? Yep. Most people have him as the best. So how did we come to that conclusion? Let me explain this real quick, okay? 2023, he was the 12th highest graded defensive tackle. He was 26th in 24, and then he was 206th in 25, okay? So why is he dropping down so far? Guys, the PFF grades aren't grading out like he's the best defensive tackle in football, right? It doesn't mean he isn't. Again, we're just kind of going off of that. The PFF big board had him in the 9 spot. The consensus big board had him at 12. So what's bringing him down to that 53.0? It's his PFF grades themselves. So PFF said, he didn't have a great year, but we think he's the 9th best defensive tackle. Somebody make that make sense for me. That's why we include all the information in. It doesn't mean he's not worthy of being the top defensive tackle in the draft. Again, it's all a crapshoot. However, what else is bringing him down? Daniel Jeremiah has him number 34 on his board with his first initial top 50. So what that means, guys, is the consensus big board saying he's the 12th best prospect. PFF saying he's the 9th best. Daniel Jeremiah, former NFL scout, is saying he's 34. And then Walter Football is saying he's 23. Notice that's nowhere near 12 or 9, right? So that's why he ends up with a 36.7 for us, if that makes sense, okay? So again, that's why Peter Woods, a little bit lower on our board than others. Our board is a very safe board. It's like, okay, taking everything into consideration, right? Here's how we see these guys. Hopefully that makes sense to you all. Lee Hunter, we just talked about Lee Hunter, one of the risers, right? You see the 5-point bonus over here. Lee Hunter is a 49.1. I'm telling you, man, if he somehow, some way falls to the Packers at 52, I would not be opposed to taking Lee Hunter. I don't care if he's a nose and not a traditional 3-tech. If he's truly a dominant football player, you'll be able to flex him at 3-tech when you need him in those situations. And the majority of the time, you're going to be in nickel defense anyway, which means you can decide to put him in the A gap, or you can pop him over to 3 if he's versatile enough. And it's early in the draft process. We'll see if that kind of falls into place. Now, Lee Hunter, Walter Football wasn't as high on, right? They had him at 80. Daniel Jeremiah's got him at 26. He comes in at 49.1 for us. So that's a quick look of the top defensive tackles according to our board. So hopefully that answered your question there. And then the last super chat here, Paige and Dr. Crutch, thank you so much. Clayton in charge. Trade up for Jennings, Dunker, go Pat, go. Let's look at Jennings, Dunker real quick, and then we'll get out of here, okay? So let's sort the board by, let me put it back up here. We sorted the board by grade now, okay? So everything's shuffled back around. And let's see where Jennings, Dunker is, all right? Jennings, Dunker We have him in the 21 spot right now. It says 22, but keep in mind we got a placeholder at the top, okay? That's why when you'll see 22 and I say 21, you see 33, I say 32. That's what that represents, okay? So Jennings Dunker is in the 21 spot. Offensive tackle out of Iowa. He is dominating. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put a waterfall emoji next to his name because that Iowa waterfall, that red-headed mullet that he's got, that business in the front, party in the back. We called them Kentucky waterfalls back home. That's an Iowa waterfall. And I'm telling you, that's the type of guy you want in your trenches, especially if the grades match up, and they do. Jennings Dunker, a 25.8 grade as it sits right now. Now, keep in mind, he was not in Daniel Jeremiah's top 50. He is not on Walter Football's top 100, okay? So this might be a guy that's a late riser. He will most likely get the bonus. I'm not done adding on all the bonuses. I feel like he shined at the Senior Bowl, although Daniel Jeremiah did not mention him. We'll see if he gets a bonus there. But right now, without any of those bonuses, without the Greg Cosell bonus, without Dane Brugler possibly having him higher, he's in the 21 spot. And the reason being is his PFF grades, 143rd. He jumped all the way to 8th in 24, and he barely fell back to 17th in 25, which is still a great grade. PFF Big Board had him at 44. Consensus Big Board had him at 34. He lands at the 25.8, making him 21st on our board, worthy of somewhere around the 25th pick. If he were to drop and you pick it in the 30s, you go, oh, wow, yeah, he had a 25.8 score. He's in the same tier as Emmanuel McNeil Warren. He is a safety out of Toledo, and Caden McDonald, defensive tackle out of Ohio State, who we just talked about, and Jennings Dunker. Those three are in the same tier there, okay? So if it came time that you were picking, let's say around 20, and all three of those players were there, you go to your cluster buster. You probably go to need. If your top need was a safety, you go with McNeil Warren. If your top need was a defensive tackle, you would go with Caden McDonald. If your top need was offensive tackle, you go with Jennings Dunker, right? If none of those are needs, I would go with tier 1 position of importance, which means defensive tackle or offensive tackle. And now you got to go to your cluster buster. You could probably, your cluster buster would be which one is it may not be a need, but which one's a bigger need, D tackle or offensive tackle. That's how they troubleshoot these. One of my big pet peeves in draft season is when the sports media says, I know that GMs say they only go best player available. They don't draft by need, but boy, they took the best player at need there, didn't they? It's because you've got a cluster of players. They are still being honest by saying you got to stick to the board. That in this case, McNeil Warren has a slightly better grade than Caden McDonald, right? Caden McDonald has a slightly higher grade than Jennings Dunker. However, when you look at it as a whole, they're in the same tier. So yeah, you're going to go with your position of need out of that tier. You're just not going to reach out of that tier to get another position of need and take a lesser football player, if that makes sense. So the tiers are there to help you determine, okay, they're close enough together that you got pretty much the same grade on them, if that makes sense. So, all right. That's it, guys. The voice is going, and me and Jacob's got to do another live stream here in a little bit, so I'm going to get out of here. Greatly appreciate everybody jumping in the chat. And I know everybody was in here having a great conversation. I was having to focus on the supers. I apologize if I neglected you guys a little bit. But appreciate everybody here. Mike Berry, like I said, Paige and Dr. Crush, Chester Marco, Coach Lynn in the house. Not so cool. Greatly appreciate everybody swinging through. Romero Hill in here. Good to see you, buddy. I love seeing some of the regulars come back around too to the draft coverage. So you guys, let me know what you thought about this video, man. Let me know who your favorite prospects are. Hit us up in the comments. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon, and we will be back later today. Everybody get ready for the Senior Bowl. It's going to be a blast, all right? My name's Clayton. This is PTA. Go, Pack, go.
Here we go. We're out.
Bye, guys.